My reign as a Jeopardy champion lasted almost 35 minutes.
This was coming, like the waiting room of the vasectomist, and I know that's not what he's called. I know there's like a fancy word, but...
If you leave, I have nothing left to live for.
We were standing side by side, looking out across the expanse of desert, and he said to me, "They look just like stars dancing in the horizon, don't they?" I said, "Yeah, and they would look even more beautiful if they weren't cluster bombs falling on Iraqi positions." As our unit moved forward and into our objective, it was easy for all of your fears to be imagined. Fear of being blown apart, fear of being burned to death, the fear of being choked to death by grotesque, poisonous gas. Because the only thing that soldiers fear on both sides of any conflict and combat is death. Near the end of the ground war, Iraqi soldiers were starting to surrender in groups of 100. And sometimes they would fight back in groups as small as 2 or 3. Both of these extreme behaviors, like Paul said, fear is contagious. It's all brought about by fear and not logic. As the ground war was winding down and I was suffering from sleep deprivation, I had a moment, a lapse in thought, and I set my weapon down and I thought I'd walk out into the desert for a short respite. I was going to take a piss. And as I started to urinate, I noticed that the ground in front of me was starting to shake, move around and oscillate, and I knew immediately what it was. But before I could react, 3 Iraqi soldiers jumped up out of position. They had covered with burlap and sand, and all 3 of them had their weapons in their hand. I could tell by their behavior, the way they were crying, their emotions. They didn't want to fight. They wanted to surrender. I'm still holding my penis. And I have this sensation like I needed to have some kind of weapon. So I pointed it at him and I motioned with my penis, "Get out of that hole, get out of there. Hands up." So I walked him back to my unit, much to the amusement of the other guys in the unit. I don't know why they didn't shoot me out of fear, because certainly if I had my weapon, I would have killed them. I have no idea, and I'm left with this thought, why it is, what level of fear could have been in their soul that allowed them to endure weeks of bombing, days of artillery and multiple bomblets, the affront of tanks moving on their position, and they don't surrender. For them to finally look up out of their position, see my penis and say, "That's it, we can't take it anymore."
All right, Ray Christian, everybody. Keep it going.